Maybe like something about the after party.
Hey, this is Julia Taransky of Brave the World, and I'm here at CPAC 2014.
Let's get drunk with some statists.
I'll take it. You guys look on here, and it'll be on stand.
So I made it into the main exhibit hall without a pass.
And unfortunately, and I can say this respectfully, but I absolutely believe that the establishment in the Democratic
Bart Miner is running my...
Where's he at there?
Governor.
Okay, great.
This is Colonel Maine.
Hey, Governor.
Can I get a response to the following statement? The system isn't broken. The system never worked.
I would not concur with that premise.
The system is broken, and the system did work.
The system has worked. Let's face it, humans are corruptible. That's the reason our system was set up the way it is, to make it as least corruptible as possible.
It does work. It doesn't work perfectly. If we can make it work at least imperfectly with some spirit of bipartisanship, I think we'll have something going on.
The system isn't broken. The system never worked.
The system works just fine, but for the wrong people.
That is a very provocative statement, and I would say that certainly the system, if you define it as in the last few decades, hasn't been working. I certainly think that the system as set up by the founding fathers of America worked and worked for quite some time, certainly until the progressives got a hold of it a little over 100 years ago.
It's an interesting question. I don't know if the system ever worked perfectly. There have always been injustices and problems with the government, with the American government, but there's certainly a possibility for us to make it work one day.
That is a challenging one to answer because the system was designed, back when it was created, it was designed functionally, and it just continued to break down more and more over the years.
The system never worked. The system's broken, the system's never worked. Well, I mean, it hasn't worked perfectly, ever, but it has worked much better than it is right now. It is broken, and I'm not so sure we can repair it, but we got to try.
Well, the system does work. The founding fathers left us an incredible system, but what you see now are politicians that are manipulating the system for their own self-interest and also for special interests.
And we studied and created a document that's the finest document of statesmanship in the history of man, and it did work.
Do you think it's at all possible to freeze that ideal system that the Founding Fathers envisioned for America? Do you think that's in our future in any way to go back to that and to keep it that way? Or is that a naive idea?
Whether it's be naive or ideal, at the start of the Constitutional Convention, I said, let us raise a standard to which the wise and honest can repair.
So when did the system start working?
That's a very good question. I think it stopped working probably about 50, 60 years ago.
And why?
Well, we had a concentration of wealth in the hands of the financial elite, the financial services industry, and then there was a deliberate attempt to turn power over to multinational corporations and erode national sovereignty.
So what made it broken then?
Well, people wanted more power, and the federal government just started collecting more and more powers and imposing their will upon the states. And I think that's what really impaired the system.
I'll give you a great quote that came from someone. He says, "Nothing so strongly impels a man to regard the interests of his constituents than the certainty of returning to the general mass of the people from whence he was taken, where he must participate in their burdens." That was said at the Virginia Ratifying Convention in June of 1788 by George Mason. That's what our founding fathers wanted. They did not want career politicians. They wanted citizen servants. If we can get back to having citizen servants, we will have liberty, we will have freedom, and our system will work.
Do you think they're actually representatives, or do you think there's, higher powers at play, and it's quite difficult to actually properly vote on somebody to properly carry out the will of the people?
I believe if we get organized and put our votes in a block, we can actually change the elected officials. They are called representatives according to the Constitution, but in fact they're mostly now working for another power.
But if you look back some of the writings of John Adams, he says in order to make this system work, the best that's out there, though it has many flaws, you still have to have moral people. You still have to have people that are doing the right thing, and that takes us to make sure those moral people are there. It's worked in the past, and it'll work again.
So it's not an inherent flaw in the system, it's an inherent flaw in human beings that are part of that system.
Of course, yeah, we all sin, we all do wrong. So what we need is a system in place that provides us the best opportunities to live our life unencumbered, as God would have it. You choose, and you answer for your choices.
And that's your vision for America right now?
Absolutely, and that's been what we have had. It's just, it gets corrupted at times, and it's time to clear house every so often. It's coming.
The American system is based on the foundational principle that government exists to preserve liberty. People forget that in America, and unfortunately, I think that's where we've gone wrong.
Do you think it's possible to not go wrong, to not stray away from those basic principles?
Right. Well, the Founding Fathers very carefully set up a system based on balancing one portion of government off against the other. And they did this because they knew that the human tendency was to accumulate power unto oneself, and that Americans would certainly be no exception to this. What we need to do is get back to constitutional governance based on the preamble of the Declaration of Independence. And what the preamble says is that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So the purpose of government is to secure natural rights. It's worked before, and it can work again, but we have to have a smaller government that lives within the boxes that it was put into back when we formed this country.
And how do you, once you downsize, how do you keep it small? Because growth seems to be inevitable when everything's running smoothly.
The only way, through the people holding the government accountable for what it does.
People have to step up, get educated, and actually press their representatives, because we have more votes than the other side has money.
It's up to the people. If the people continue to elect individuals that will lie to them and they accept the most lowest of character and behavior, then as Benjamin Franklin said, you get the government you deserve.
What about if you don't have a system at all? Then it can't get broken.
You're killing me. You're Occupy, aren't you? You're from Occupy. You people are from Occupy. You're anarchists. Are you anarchists?
I am an anarchist, yeah.
What are we speaking about, anarchy, or what are we? Well, that's not what America is about. America was trying to fight a usurper, the king.
And now we have a new one.
And now we have a new one, yeah.
It feels to me like that evolution of power is inevitable. And do you think there can be no system? Because maybe if there's no system, then it can be corrupted. Or do you think we need something basic to keep things going?
I think there has to be a system, and I think the system should be national governments. That's sort of bite-sized chunks. If you have a one-world system, management by multinational corporations, there's no accountability, and it's impossible for people, individual citizens, individual people, to have input into something so vast. But if I know it's less efficient, but if you have a multiplicity of national governments, it actually allows for more accountability. And just look at life. Life is not rational. There's always something unexpected. We don't want a totally efficient system. We want inefficiency. If you have a machine where there's no gap in the gears, it freezes up. You need a little bit of slop in the gears for things to move and continue functioning. We need inefficiency. We need a space for humanity to leak through the rational system.
Can we have a non-system? Can we have no government? Do you think that would ever work?
No, because in a system of anarchy, you don't have rule of law. And as a good example is I'm a military veteran. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Army, and I'm physically very large. So if you have no government, people like me who are strong, who know how to use weapons, will be able to have an advantage over people who are weak and who don't know how to use weapons. So we don't want to have anarchy. We don't want to have no rule of law. What we need to have is a system where co-equal branches of government that are zealous of each other's power keep each other in check, and in so doing keep government limited and keep government focused on liberty, which is the purpose of the government in the United States of America.
Now, what about if you have voluntary institutions that, like insurance, where you pay people to protect each other, as well as at least in an anarcho-capitalist society, you would have guns. Everybody would have guns.
Yeah.
So that's an equalizer as well.
I would still argue that it didn't work because you will see throughout history that what happens is people who are better at organizing and more aggressive and more given to like warlordism would in fact rule over those people who don't. At the end of the day, anarcho-capitalism, I believe, is an unsustainable system, especially in the wake of other large nation states that possess nuclear weapons and may have things that we may have things they want, and they just simply would come and take them. So while I simply, certainly from a thought exercise, am intrigued with such a thing, practically speaking, my experience in the U.S. military, both at home and abroad, makes me think that such a system would be impracticable.